You ever wonder if an app can really change the way you eat and transform your body in just 8 weeks? Well, I put the MacroFactor app to the ultimate test. And this is the same app that is science-backed by YouTuber 𝗪𝗪𝗍𝗪, who's the co-owner. On January 1st, I set out to lose as much body fat and maintain as much lean muscle mass as possible. And 8 weeks later, I'm here to share with you every step of my weight cut journey, including the tools and my surprising results. This series is going to include weekly videos of me checking in, showing you me stepping on a scale, show you some of my meals that I've been doing, how I log them in the app. I'll even share with you the workouts that I'm putting myself through, why I'm choosing the workouts I'm doing, and how I have to adjust them based on my energy needs. As you're cutting, you sometimes might feel a little bit lower in the energy because you're eating less, because the goal is to drop body fat. So I'll have to navigate some things and obstacles that a lot of people come across. Now, this is not my first rodeo. I've done cuts and bulks and up and down before, so I am experienced in that sense. I'm not looking to make drastic, 40 pounds of fat loss here. I'm really only looking realistically in this 8 weeks, if I could get, 5 pounds of body fat off, maybe 6, and really not lose any muscle, that would be exemplar for me, and it would be a huge change in my physique. Although my overall numbers that I'm shooting for might not be as much as you are, these same lessons apply, and realistically, if I'm out here losing a couple pounds of fat, that's something that you'll be able to lose more. If you have more to lose, you typically can lose more. It's just I'm starting from a leaner position, and I want to just continue to get leaner and really dial things in. So if you're beginner or advanced, this is a series for you. All right, so now let's talk about the MacroFactor diet app. And I want to start out by saying I really enjoyed this app because I've used a lot of different apps, and I know that on Feast Good here, we've tested over 22 different diet apps. And this one really ranks as one of the top ones, if not the top one for me. And here's why. So most diet apps just give you static meal plans, and they don't really adjust in real time with you week to week, whereas MacroFactor does, which is a humongous bonus right out of the gates. And for me, that's huge because when we're dieting, we want to have our calories and our macros adjusting every week based on our rate of progress or our rate of no progress. And a lot of times what happens is we have static numbers, and with other apps, you don't have that updating based on your weigh-ins on a consistent basis. And MacroFactor does a really wonderful job of taking the data that you put in, taking all the foods, making sure you're logging and being consistent, and then adjusting as needed week to week. Another big factor here is ease of use. And right out of the gates, when we're trying to log foods into a diet app, ease of use needs to be up there because it's already hard enough to track our diet. So I want to have an app that allows me to easily input my data, easily track my foods, easily search foods or add custom foods, and MacroFactor app does a wonderful job with that. And unlike other apps, MacroFactor doesn't penalize you if maybe you eat a little bit more at a certain window because it's looking at the total day. Because what it does is it knows that there's missing data, and it takes that into account. So let's say you tracked for 4 out of the 7 days and the weekend you didn't track. It's going to recognize that, and it's not going to adjust your calories. It's actually just going to call you out and say, hey, you didn't track enough for me to report back and say we need to cut calories or increase calories. So it will make you be more consistent before it changes that. And some apps that just have a linear model where maybe it just continues, you're not hitting your weight loss, it just says you got to eat less, when the real issue is you're not being consistent. So this app does a really wonderful job of recognizing that first and making you be consistent before it starts changing the macros on you. So another thing I really like about this app is that it allows you to decide if you want to fit your macros to be a little bit more higher protein or lower carb or lower fat. And while the science shows that it really comes down to making sure we're eating enough protein to support lean muscle mass and growth, whether that's in a cutting phase or a weight gain phase, it really comes down to overall calories. And now some people, they prefer to eat more carbs like myself. Other people, their diet naturally gravitates towards more fat. So you have the autonomy to tell the app to, while we're watching the overall calories, to tell how you want to eat that, right? So for me, in this one, I chose, because I like carbs and I'm willing to go more carb and lower fat, I said, hey, I want to have moderate to higher protein, and it kind of gave me some targets where I was trying to hit 1 to 1.2 grams per pound per day because I was cutting and I wanted to get that up there because I didn't want to be under protein when I'm being underfed because I want to maintain my lean muscle mass. And I wanted to keep carbs in there so I could train hard. So I told it to follow, the calorie, we're still looking at at the restriction there, but I said I want higher protein and I want to keep my carbs in there, so my fat inversely had to be down. I had that decision. It was really cool to have that, whereas other apps, they kind of just make assumptions and they just say, hey, this is what you're going to eat. And sometimes some apps just only give you calories and they don't even look at the macros, which is a giant misstep in my opinion. And then lastly, what I really liked about this app, being somebody who is more advanced in my training, I already understand the sciences and the sports nutrition aspect of cutting and bulking and how I could do that without the app. I really put it to the test to see, would this be something that I would do for myself, somebody who understands the science behind why I'm doing certain things in my diet. And this app was spot on. I was able to say, hey, myself as a coach who knows exactly what I'm doing, I want to see if this app would maybe do something differently that I would suggest. And we were on the same level every single time. That's something that really is important to me, is can I find an app that not only is science backed, but it works in real time. And this app checked all of the boxes for me. Before we dive into my 8-week transformation using the MacroFactor app, if you want to use the MacroFactor for your own weight cut, try the code 𝗪𝗲𝗙 and get 2 free weeks. And that's going to be enough time for you to really get in there, track your progress, and let the app adjust your calories to meet your goals. All right, so week 1, I just jumped on the scale, 194 pounds. Typically, I float around that between, low to mid 190s and kind of my maintenance, where I'm just kind of eating, I'm living, I'm 80%, I'm living well, clean eating, and then 20%, I'm having some sweets and I'm kind of going out to eat. So that's my happy spot. That allows me to train, feel relatively healthy and lean, and be able to do a lot of things in life. Now that I'm starting from 194, my overall goal is to get down into the high 180s. I'm not looking to lose a lot, maybe 5 pounds, but what I am trying to do, and this is going to be my challenge, is I'm trying to just lose body fat. That's it. I don't want to lose any muscle. This first week, the app has got me right about on my maintenance calories, about 32 to 3,400 calories. I train most days of the week with weights. I don't do a whole lot of cardio. I might, jog a mile here and there, but that's about it. So most of the time I'm weight training, and I'm already generally lean, as every week I'll be jumping on the scale and I'll be doing physique updates. So as you can see in this week 1, generally lean. I'm really just looking to lose a couple. My expectations for this first week, honestly, is really just get into the app, make sure I'm logging, get my consistency up. I've used the app before, but I really want my consistency and my habit of tracking everything down. I'm gonna weigh in 3 times a week just so I can put data into that app. And then for my workouts, not a whole lot's gonna change between me not trying to lose weight or me trying to gain muscle mass. I'm gonna be lifting with weights, most days of the week. I'll kind of show some of my workouts here and there. I'm not saying these are the best fat loss workouts or muscle gain workouts. I enjoy Olympic weightlifting, so I'll do some of those. A lot of compound lifts with the barbells, and then a lot of machines. Then I might throw in here and there just some general cardiovascular work, maybe some light jogging, maybe some boxing, maybe some bike. So again, I like just most fitness. When I'm cutting, I typically let my intake control that calorie deficit, because I'm pretty active and I really want to maintain my muscle mass. So that's going to make sure that I have to focus on the weight training is key for that. So I'm excited to jump in, and we will check in at the end of the week, the start of week 2, in our next segment. Okay, so it's the start of week 2. Weight loss was pretty minimal. It's only been a couple days, so I didn't really expect a whole lot. It's also the start of the week, coming off a weekend where I still eat really well on the weekends, but it just, I always know that I'm a little heavier in the beginning of the week than the end of the week, and that's fine. I usually do 2 weigh-ins. I'll do on Mondays and Fridays. Those are the days I choose. So typically I will compare Monday and Monday and Friday, just because I know that there's a weight fluctuation, just naturally. That's kind of how my body is and how my lifestyle is. The app's really great because it will put those data points in, and you'll plot it, and then it will take the averages. So that's really something cool. You don't really get hung up on, oh my God, I gained 3 pounds in over the weekend, or it's obviously something to be aware of, but if we can really see how your weight's gonna kind of go like this, it's gonna be there versus a linear model. So that's really cool about the app, is that it does that, and it kind of forces that on you to be consistent with those weigh-ins. Now, looking back into week 1, some challenges that I had, not a whole bunch other than I was just a little hungry, right? And that was something where I had to just be a little bit more aware of at the end of the night, or my snacking, because I was coming from a phase where I could kind of eat and snack, and I was kind of in my equilibrium, my maintenance diet. I had to kind of cut that out, and it was only a couple hundred calories, but it was just enough that I noticed it, and that's okay. That's the whole goal of this, right? So it wasn't anything drastic. I was not super hungry. I didn't notice my energy was low. I didn't notice that my workouts were impacted. It was just me not going into the kitchen and just kind of grabbing something. And that's the beginning of this diet phase. It's just a soft entry. In terms of training went great. I started a new program, just kind of went in there, did good work, gave, 80, 90%, didn't really push too close to failure on things. And again, that's more of not dieting or anything. That's just good training idea to do when you're starting out a program, 1-2 weeks. Just kind of get yourself in, get some good numbers, and then we can progress down the road. Logging foods was another challenge, just because I was coming from a maintenance diet. So I was kind of logging here and there. I was aware of what I was eating, but I wasn't tracking everything. And you saw on some of the days, like on that Saturday evening, we went out with some friends, I had a drink. I do put the drinks in there because, like, for example, Sunday I had a drink as well, watching a sporting event, and I budgeted that in. I just scanned it. It was great. It was an IPA, and just scanned it in there. It was in the app, and that was great. It accounted for the calories, and I did that ahead of time, so I got my eating structured properly. That's probably the biggest challenge with this, coming from starting the diet, is just getting into the habit of logging. But again, the app is super simple. You can scan barcodes, you can even AI talk into it and kind of describe what you're eating, and it will do its really good job of trying to do that. So I'm gonna try and use a little bit more of those tools this week to help me get ready just to continue this path for the next 7 weeks. So let's start with my total weight loss. In the 2 weeks, I'm at about 1.5 pounds. For me, I'm right about 0.5% of my body weight per week. I'm around just under 200 pounds, so I'm losing just under about a pound a week, which honestly, that's really great. And I think for most people, I think it's a realistic way to think about, we're trying to lose body fat. I know we could lose more weight on the scale per week, right? But we would probably be losing a lot more muscle tissue, especially with a higher rate of weight loss. It would be very drastic with our weight cuts in terms of our calories down, how much we're losing, and it would probably result in you, yes, losing weight, but probably losing the same amount of fat as you would with the same amount of muscle, which is not ideal. We don't want to lose muscle. We want to minimize muscle loss, because aesthetically, that's how we get lean and muscular builds. So that was my rate of loss. I really think that's great. We're gonna see what happens here with my app update tomorrow when I come in and I show you guys what exactly the app's gonna do for me. I expect it's probably gonna keep me very similar, maybe a slight bump down. Now, my diet. Week 1 was pretty easy. I just kind of didn't snack as much, and I was just a little bit more planned. I think just week 1 was a soft entry into things. Week 2, my calories dropped about 50 to 100 calories. So it wasn't anything aggressive, but it was just enough that I really am starting to notice it. Towards the end of the day, I normally would just kind of eat whatever I wanted. I have to really be meticulous on, okay, I have this many protein, this many calories left, and it's definitely slightly less than what I want, and there is a little bit of willpower that needs to come out there. Now, it's nothing drastic. I'm not thinking about food all day, but I am proactively thinking about what my next meal is, or how I'm going to make sure I don't go over later in the day. Now, the biggest things that I've had to really pay attention to is I typically do a balanced diet, and the app allows you to choose between balance of high fat or high carb, or kind of balance things out. I like carbs, but I also like to maintain some fat diet, but usually I can just eat as much peanut butter. Well, that's one thing the app shows me. I get a lot of calories from peanut butter, so I'm cutting that back, so make sure I can save my carbs and get them in there, because they help me train hard and my protein. In terms of training, intensity is still relatively, it's maybe 7 or 8 out of 10. I'm training hard, but I'm not going crazy. Recovery's fine. I don't notice any decrease in energy. In terms of lifestyle, I'm in the Midwest. It's winter, it's cold, it's snowing out, but I urge everyone in a diet plan to just try and get your steps up. I'm really trying to be conscious to get my step count to 8,000 a day, 10,000, take the dog out, be more active. That definitely helps out with just keeping myself moving throughout the day. It doesn't increase my hunger at all, but it does increase my output. Nice low intensity exercise, or just movement. Not even movement where I'm sweating, I'm just moving around. So that's definitely the tip going into the main stretch of the diet. Week 3 through 8 is maintain an active lifestyle. Doesn't mean go work out all the time. Yes, you can work out, but be active. Look at your step count. So that's my tips. Week 4, we are entering into that after 3 successful weeks. I say successful because I'm going to share with you that I've lost about 2.5 pounds in 3 weeks, which is really great. My goals right here is I'm tracking for about 0.5 pound to 3/4 pound a week, and I'm right on that. So the AI-powered macro factor coach in the app itself, I'm using that to dictate whether or not I'm going to decrease my calories or stay. It's got me locking in, basically staying the same going into week 4 because of my progress in the first 3 weeks. It's a nice sustainable pace. So if it ain't broke, we're not fixing it. So that was great because looking back into week 3, I had some things come up where it was, it could have been the other way. I could have maybe not lost weight or maybe even gained some weight. Definitely at the point in my diet right now where it's getting more challenging. At the end of the night, I'm just getting a little bit hungrier. Right before bedtime, usually when I'm not cutting, I can have some food and feel good with that and not put a bunch of weight on, hardly at all. But I'm trying to lose weight. So I need to really attack those low-hanging fruits. Like, for me, it's going to be snacking late at night. And that's just enough where I'm feeling the physiological effects of just a little bit of hunger. Some of that's probably some boredom. So that was probably the hardest thing this week, was having to do that. I also have a child. So just eating the scraps, right? Cutting the crust off. Usually I want to just chomp on that. And sometimes I did. And I logged it and was over by a couple hundred, maybe once or twice a week. Now, the pros. I've really been dialing in on my weekends. I've been cutting back a little bit on my drinking. So I don't really drink a whole lot, maybe a couple beers a week or maybe a glass of whiskey. And that really has been something where I said, in these 8 weeks, if I do it, I have to budget it in, and it's really 1 or 2 drinks in the weekend. That's it, and I'm budgeting that in and just logging in there, which is great. The app, it might not have the specific drink that I'm using, but I can put in other ones that are similar to it. Now, the looking ahead, I'm kind of in a position where I can just kind of set it, forget it. I have my diet now set up where I have the same breakfast, some oatmeal with some peanut butter, some protein in there. I have kind of my consistent snacks throughout the week, some variants in lunches, but I kind of have the options that have worked for my macros now the past couple of weeks. So I'm just kind of plugging and playing, eating those. And I think that's something that some people might struggle with, is eating the same thing every day, but it's a very short time frame of your life. You're trying to, the goal here is not to have flavorful diets. I'm not saying that I'm not eating what I enjoy. I am, but I think a lot of times people try to spend too much on that. Focus on the substance, focus on the numbers, and look at the food from that way versus trying to come up with all these creative ways to eat something new every day. I know it's probably better, but again, this is 8, 12, whatever weeks of the goal is to lose body fat. So you need to just really dial in here and not let that aspect of it get to you. Easier said than done for some, but for me, I'm not struggling with that. In terms of training's all the same. I am just continuing. I'm in week 3 now of my training program. I started a little behind on my diet to the training. Did week 1 twice just to kind of catch up there after some time off. So I'm in week 3, progressing everything nicely. I'm not getting really hit with any low energy, and I really credit that to slowly cutting back on the calories. So that's my week 3, or full week 3, going into week 4 update. No changes in the app. I'm just continuing to grind on these macros. All right, so I wanted to do my weekly updates here. Now, I am through 4 full weeks. I'm going into week 5. So in 4 weeks, 1 month, use the MacroFactor app, I have lost a total of 3 pounds, which for me, I was really happy with. My goal going into this was to lose 1/2 pound to 3/4 pound a week. I didn't have a whole lot to lose, and my really big goal here was to not lose any muscle, not lose any strength or power or performance in the gym, and really just lean down, which for me, if I could have lost 5 to 6 pounds in a 8-week period, a 2-month period, I would be ecstatic. And I'm tracking right for that. From right now, 4 weeks in, I'm really happy with the progress that I've been making. And I attribute that to a couple things. Number 1 is that the app has allowed me to just set myself up and be consistent. The tracking of it, it's very fluid, very easy. I've been able to just track things. I've even had, a couple meals where I've eaten out, and I've been able to estimate the best that I can based on the food that they have in there, based on the AI tools, to be able to at least be aware of what I'm eating and try and make a good estimated guess on what's in there so I can still keep track of my nutrition. I will say that there was a meal, earlier in the week, I had a date night with my wife, and it was something we haven't done in many months, because with a newborn. So I let myself enjoy that meal, didn't really worry about it, and we got right back on the diet the next day. So that's something to take away from that. I have been extremely consistent. I would say over 90+% of all my meals have been consistent. I typically would say if we're not over 80-85% at the bare minimum, you're probably not gonna have a lot of great results, and that's not this app, that's just any diet. So that's something that I really strive for, and I would say the next 4 weeks going forward, I'm looking at my calendar, nothing really, no big roadblocks or obstacles to overcome there. So I'm gonna be able to really attack that, and I'm looking forward to the app being able to help me that. Now, the updates, I put my weight in, I go through the coaching system there that the AI uses. It's really keeping my calories and macros pretty consistent because I'm losing at a good rate. And that's what's great, is that it's not continuing to push my calories lower and lower because I'm already getting progress. And that really, I think, contributes, is attributed to my consistency in logging and eating and making sure I'm hitting those targets using the app targets that they give me, and then my training. My training, I'm not doing anything crazy compared to before I was trying to lose fat. I'm really focusing on still hitting the weights hard. In terms of cardiovascular exercise or doing extra things, it can be challenging sometimes with the weather to get outside and be active and get my 10,000 steps a day. So I'm just trying to sneak in 10, 20 minutes after a workout, maybe 1 to 2 times a week, of just a light jog or some walking or some biking. Nothing crazy. I'm not doing intervals. I'm just trying to move because realistically, the weight loss and fat loss in my diet is coming from me eating less, and then the workouts themselves are helping me preserve my muscle mass. So I'm not really trying to get a little extra bump with just calories burned from cardio. I know that's something that some people might want to lean into, but for me, my equation is the diet takes care of the fat loss, the workouts take care of the muscle retention, and then if I'm really struggling to get a little bit more and I can't eat less, or I'm not ready to eat less, then I can add a little bit of extra activity where I get my physical activity up. I like to go 8,000 steps a day, 10,000 steps a day. So I am a pretty active person with my profession, so I don't usually have to rely on that. But if that's something that's kind of how that would fit. But all in all, I'm looking forward to the back half here, and looking forward to getting after the workouts and using the app to help me stay consistent.
We have successfully completed 5 weeks of my fat loss phase using the MacroFactor diet app. And I wanted to just share my struggles, my successes over the past 5 weeks, and then what I'm looking to build upon going into the final backstretch here, going into my 6th week. Because I've been consistent, I've been getting really good results. It's telling me exactly I'm about 0.5, so half a pound down every week, which is right at my goal. I wanted 0.5 to 0.75 pounds because I don't have a whole lot to lose, so I want to lose it slowly so that I maintain as much muscle as possible. So that's been awesome. I've been able to see those analytics, and I've been really doing analytic driven decisions using the coach app to be able to drive what I'm doing for week 6. So all in all, my weight loss is tracking great. I've just been staying consistent, eating consistently on weekends. I've had some slip ups here and there, or maybe I call them slip ups, but more of like, I might have like a burger or a beer, but I'm not going off the deep end. I think that's the biggest thing that people start to get antsy is, when do I get my cheat meal? I think it's something where it's not a cheat day. I might have a burger and a beer, and that might be it, right? And I think that's the biggest thing that people are getting hung up, is that they fall off the wagon doing that, or they think they deserve, some sort of a cheat meal. I'm not saying I'm not enjoying myself and maybe going over a little bit here, but I'm still staying within that range, and I'm really trying to dial it in and control it. And if I do have a meal where maybe I go off and I skip it, and from logging, I don't let it impact the next day or the next meal. I get right back on track, and that's the biggest thing that I can recommend anybody who's struggling with consistency. Now, my training has been great. I've been now 5 weeks into this program. My strength's been still feeling really good. I'm able to push that. I definitely noticed, just a little bit, maybe it's training fatigue. My energy towards the end of the workout's a little lower. So I've been making sure I've been trying to get like a protein bar with maybe some carbohydrates in there, around my workout, just so I have some fuel in the tank. Going into week 6, the app has really kept me consistent. I've been initially dropped 300 calories from my baseline, and now I'm in my deficit, and I've been keeping the same number for the whole 5 weeks basically, and I've been having steady progress and growth. I suspect that it's slowly slowing down. I suspect another weight cut or a calorie cut coming up here in the next week or two, but overall, if it ain't broke, we're not going to fix it. And that's what I love about the app. It doesn't try to do anything crazy. It just uses the analytics, and it just keeps you consistent. My training going into week 6, I'm just training. I love it. That's more, my workouts is separate than what the app's doing, and I've been training strength, trying to maintain some of that in that 2 to 5 range. Nothing crazy with heavy 1-rep maxes, and then a lot of just my hypertrophy work, I call it hypertrophy work, 8 to 15 reps, just trying to have the muscles be retaining throughout this whole period. So that's been my 5 week breakdown going into week 6. I've had steady weight loss, but I have noticed now in week 6, it's starting to kind of plateau out, but I'm not freaking out because the app's really great. It shows me exactly what my weekly averages are expressed over the whole period, and I'm right at a half a pound, which is my benchmark. I'm trying to do a half a pound to 3/4 pounds a week. And I'm really focusing on that because I, A, don't have a lot to lose, and B, I want to retain as much muscle as I can throughout this process, so I'm going for slower rates of total weight loss. And lastly, C, I'm looking to not sacrifice any of my performance in the gym. So that's strength, my power movements, and then generally I want to make sure I'm still having good workouts. So all that being said, while my weight loss has slowed a little bit, I'm really happy where things are at. The struggle definitely is at the end of the night, I am definitely feeling more hungry than usual. And I've done diets like this before. I get in about week 4, week 5, week 6, and my body really starts to want to kind of revert back. And even though I haven't decreased my caloric intake drastically over the past coming weeks like you've seen, it's starting to catch up. But I also know, because I've been through this phase, that if I can just weather this storm and my body can readjust, I can get through it. And I'm looking forward to heading into week 7 because I know that this is a period, it's like an inflection point where I can kind of fall off and I can go back to eating and snacking, or I can just stay a little bit more stubborn. I'm a little bit hungry when I go to bed. I definitely am waking up ready to eat, but it's not consuming me with hunger, but I could eat more. If I can just get over that hump, I know my physique and my goals are going to thank me in the future. So that's a big thing to think about when you're struggling in that little, 4 to 6 week period where you had that initial bump, results are starting to slow down. Your body wants to go back to where it was. We have to be a little bit more stubborn. So all in all, that's been that. My workouts have been great. Week 6, I will say, a little low energy. It kind of comes and flows, but again, I've been in here, and usually after these low dips, my body starts to stabilize, and typically in the coming weeks, such as hopefully in week 7, I feel great and I'm able to push some numbers and continue my progress on my program. All right, so we are finishing up week 7 and we're into week 8, and we did it. We hit our goal weight, weighed in at 188, which was 6 pounds down from when I initially started way back. But I'm gonna continue here, and the app, as you saw, it asked me, hey, do you want to continue with this? You hit your goal. It gave me a cool little end screen. But the weight on the scale was 188, but my trend weight was still not where I want it to be. And I think that's important to point out, that you're going to have these highs and lows. So when we look at the data, you have your dark purple, which is the plotted, what you actually weighed in at. And then the app's going to smooth that out because it understands fluctuation. So it's going to take the trend data. Almost like if you're looking at market fluctuations in finances, you're having highs and lows, but we can kind of zoom out and we can draw that trend line. So I want my trend line to come down. 188 is my trend, my average. So I might have, 186 is in there, 189 is in there. So I continued it. And it wasn't broken. Like the diet was perfect. It was working. I was getting what I wanted. So I expected it to give me the same macros, and it did. Now, my training has been going great. I've been able to still eat carbohydrates to train hard, feel energized for my workouts. I'm eating a lot of protein. The recommendations that it's been giving me have been spot on. What I would also recommend, just as a coach and somebody who understands sports nutrition and training nutrition, everything matches up really well there. I'm still not doing a whole lot of cardiovascular work, like traditional cardio work in a fat loss diet. I'm weight training about 5 days a week. On weekends, I do go on long walks. It's kind of cold where I'm at, but it's starting to warm up a little bit. So I try to go out there for, a mile or 2 walks with the dog and with the family. But I'm generally on my feet all day, trying to get that 8,000, 10,000 steps per day mark as well. So that's been it. Really no complaints. I've been really happy with the process here. I haven't really cut my calories since that initial drop of like 200 to 300 calories out of the gates. And we just kind of been able to sustain that. My training has been going really well. So I've taken a very slow approach here, trying to be about a half a pound to 3/4 pounds a week. It's definitely starting to slow towards the bottom end of that range. I have days where I'm a little hungry. I'm still pretty spot on. I might go over a little bit here and there. But overall, I'm really happy with where I'm at. So we're going to see what week 8 has in store. All right, so we just finished week 8 of the diet, and as you saw in my check-in video, really haven't had any significant weight loss this week. The week started out last week, end of week 7, hit my goal weight on the scale, but it wasn't on my trending weight, so I decided to continue to push. Macros didn't change. Well, that Monday, starting the diet, I was just ravenous, like super hungry. And I think some of it was in my head. I kind of knew I hit it, and I kind of let myself maybe take my foot off the gas a little bit, which could be a
a little self-defeating. So didn't love that. I definitely ate more than usual, but I still focused on protein and carbs, just ate more of what I was doing. And honestly, the whole week I had like great training. So I think the extra carbohydrates, extra calories did go to use. Really great start to the next cycle of my training. So I feel really strong, really powerful. I feel like I've gained and maintained a lot of my size, being able to take a very subtle calorie deficit and keep a lot of my carbohydrates in there. Fast forward throughout the week, again, training went great. I'm in week 2 of my block, a lot of compound lifts. I am throwing a little bit more arms and shoulders in there just because summer's coming. I want to kind of get that, but I'm still training a lot of my lower body. I'm still training a lot of my weightlifting. So I'm still seeing a lot of that performance still hanging around, especially my top end performance of strength in a lot of the compounds like the deadlifts and the press. Now, looking into the next phase here, I've committed to doing 8 weeks. My macros really haven't changed a whole lot after the initial drop. After 8 weeks, I've averaged a half a pound a week, which for somebody like me, I'm really happy with. I didn't want to go super crazy with it. I wanted to still focus on having a really good rate of weight loss, half a pound to 3/4 pounds a week. In the initial first 4 to 6 weeks, I was losing that, half a pound, 3/4 pretty steadily. The back half here, it's really slowed down to where it brought my net average all the way down to that half a pound a week, which is still acceptable because I feel great. I do feel leaner. My diet could have been better. I kind of was, if I'm at 2,900 calories now, there'd be days I was at 3,000, 3,200. I had some outlier days there. High protein, still eating, over 200, 250 grams. And then my carbohydrates are still in there. So I'm really happy with things. And honestly, I still feel like I have some more to go. I feel like I can give a little bit more. And even if that's maybe a couple extra pounds over the next 4 weeks. So the app allows me to say, hey, do I want to end this thing? Do I want to continue this thing even after I hit that goal? So I'm going to kind of continue it and just kind of maybe push myself a little bit more to try and accomplish something and get just a little leaner, because this is normally where I'd stop. So I'm going to keep going with it. But that is my end of the 8 week. I don't expect anything else to change. My macros are probably going to stay the same. I just have to dial in a little better because again, I was going over the macros a little bit last week and the weight started to kind of stabilize it and not have that decrease. So we're going to get back on the consistency game here and head into the next week.
MacroFactor app, from a user interface, I really thoroughly enjoyed the app. It was very clean, it was very intuitive. It had a lot of ability. When I scanned foods, I was surprised that there was no food in there that I scanned that wasn't in there. Where other apps, I usually have to scan it and add it to the database, and I have to make my own custom meals. The only 3 things that I had to make custom: I made my own protein bars using casein and whey protein and oatmeal, and I was able to just put all my individual ingredients there and calculate it out. And then I just said how much a bar was in terms of grams of weight. And I just saved that, and I was able to say, I had a bar, and it calculated it for me. Another thing I really liked about the app was, hopefully when you're dieting, you are eating consistently, the same couple things for breakfast, same couple things for lunches. And when I went to go upload, I could just, open it up at 6 a.m. and it knew exactly what I had breakfast the day before, all the way down to the sizes and amounts I had. So it was really great because I could just say yes, yes, yes. The last thing I really liked about the app was the analytics. A lot of these apps have analytics. This app did a really good job of reminding you, hey, it's time to weigh in. Hey, it's time to check in. And then when you did do that, it gave you all kinds of data on your, your rate of weight loss or rate of weight gain in the 7 days, 14 days, 30 days, 90 days. It even gave you projections out there. So it kind of kept you in the game for your diet, not just in the moment now, but okay, maybe I didn't have a huge rate of weight loss or a huge rate of weight gain this week, or maybe I did. It then projected out and be like, hey, what you're feeling now is something, but this is where we're headed, or this is where we've been. So that was really cool to have that dynamic of the data. So after 8 weeks of consistently tracking and adjusting my diet using the MacroFactor app, now it's your turn to try and experience this app and use the code FEASTGOOD for 2 free weeks.